Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar. And if you've been following us for the Focus Week, I hope you've all enjoyed all of the podcasts, research, and some of the conversations we've been having throughout the week. And today, I'm delighted to talk about Tarmac's finance transformation journey. And Tarmac are an award-winning team, and they are excellent at reducing costs and improving the service to suppliers, but with a large volume of invoices, things aren't always easy. And we're going to be talking to Gemma Durham a little bit about that further on. So to discuss this further, I'm delighted this morning, as I say, to talk to Gemma Durham, who is the senior finance operations manager, and who's a strong advocate of accounts payable and finance transformation in the industry. We'll also hear from Daniel Kimpton, who is the co-founder of AP Matching, and for the last 10 years has been instrumental in delivering controls and efficiencies in finance teams across the country. And you do have the opportunity as well to ask questions as they occur to you throughout the webinar. So as we go through this morning's webinar session, if you've got any questions that you want to ask either Gemma or Daniel, then you can put them into the chat function, which you should find over on the right-hand side of your control panel. And we can just address those questions at the end and put them either to Gemma or to Daniel, depending on what your question is. So with that, it's my absolute pleasure to hand you over now to Gemma Durham.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. So thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning. I know everybody's really busy leading up to month end, etc. So it's appreciated that you've taken the time out. So if we can just start with the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so most of you may be aware, but Tarmac, we are a CRH company. We are a leading sustainable building materials and construction business. I'll let you all just take a moment to read around the fact that currently we have around 350 sites and we employ roughly 7,000 people across the country. Next slide, please. Okay, so within shared services, and apologies if the writing isn't very clear there. So I'm part of the P2P function that sits in Tarmac Shared Service Centre. And within Tarmac Shared Service Centre, we have P2P, O2C, logistics, we have record to report, we have a finance transformation team, we have an automation team, and we have a data and insights team. Each one of them teams holds a critical part of everything that we deliver out to our sites, to our industry, to our business, to our stakeholders, and everyone in between. And the good thing about that is that we have a really strong, passionate shared service centre that believe in everything that we do and everything that we want to deliver. And we live and breathe, business transformation and process improvement. We are driven by automation and data insights and just having that genuine passion to make things better, not just for our employees, but obviously for making sure our suppliers get paid on time, making sure that we bill our customers on time, and just making sure that kind of start to finish, order to cash, invoice to pay process is absolutely as tight and professional as we can be. Next slide, please. Okay, so I joined P2P joined Tarmac early 2021, and it's fair to say that it was a baptism of fire, and I didn't know much about P2P at the time. So I've spent a lot of time kind of looking at our internal processes, looking at how we develop our team, how we hold our position with the business, and wanted to make sure that we absolutely owned the space that we should own, and that we can be a trusted partner to our finance teams, to our business, and everything in between. So I just wanted to take a moment to give you all an insight into the statistics that sit around the P2P function in Tarmac. Next slide, please. Okay, so looking at that, we raise roughly, this is on an annual basis, so we're processing roughly 20 to 30,000 purchase orders a month. We're processing 100,000 card transactions a year. We manage 5,000 suppliers. We have roughly 20 to 30,000 invoices a month as well, that obviously we'll come on to talk about in a moment when we look at the invoice matching solution. But one of the kind of critical things that we done was introduce kind of the process initiative and the project initiatives that we wanted to look at. So we don't sit in a business as usual process. You know, we have teams that will run making sure that our invoices are processed, our transactions are completed. But we look at ensuring that we've got a team of people that can always look for that value add, that process improvement, whether it's a reporting improvement, whether it's a system improvement, whether it's a strategic improvement, or something that we can just live and breathe a continuous CI program around. And what we also have is the business partnering team, which has been quite critical to the success of what we deliver in P2P, in the fact that we needed people that could reach out to our business, that could train the business, that can support them, that can be that go-to team where, you know, if we've got a team that are working and processing purchase orders, for example, we can then use another team to go out there and train and educate the business on that. What it also allows us to do is have that team that can be that push and pull. You know, so if you've got you know, we all live in a world where suddenly there's an emergency, suddenly there's a supplier on stop, suddenly the world's kind of you know, falling apart around you. Having that team to be able to go, right, can you just do this? Can you just do that? Is great. And you know, by no means I take anything away from the rest of the teams. We have a fantastic set of individuals within the team, and it's fair to say that they've come on a massive journey over the last 2.5 years. So they do make me proud every day, bless them. Next slide, please. Okay, so we had a lot of challenges. It's fair to say that we probably lived in a world where we just done what we needed to do and post the invoice, pay the suppliers, and probably not really look at how we can drive improvements every day. So we kind of from the forefront set out my stall to say, right, what are our challenges? So if you wouldn't mind just moving on to the next slide for me, please. So foregoing for a moment the kind of normal business as usual challenges that you'd have around, you know, setting out a skills matrix and developing individuals within the team, looking at your kind of BAU broken processes, we spent a lot of time, as I say, investing in the people, investing in the P2P culture, and investing in giving our business our time and our effort to prove that we were here to be partnered with the business. When we then started looking at our internal challenges, from around kind of the more critical functionality of a P2P team and what the main, I guess, cohorts around what you have to deliver and how you deliver it, some of the most critical things were statement reconciliation, the relationship that we'd have with suppliers and procurement, the invoice match rate. So if you imagine that we receive, I don't know, 10,000, 12,000 invoices a week, by having to have that team manually process the invoices, there was a lot of pressure on that team. Looking at things around prompt payment and how that impacts maybe tenders and all of the things that we do. And again, the invoice backlog. So we had around 25,000 invoices in backlog at the end of 2020. So there were some real critical focus points for myself and the team. And one of the kind of most instrumental parts of that was the relationship with Dan and Cogent. So if we just move on to the second next slide, please. So the engagement slide, thank you. Okay, so quite early on, so we've been involved with Cogent for AP matching for a long period of time now. And I think it's fair to say, and Dan will probably agree with me, that we didn't necessarily have a relationship that meant that we could go places and that we could do certain things. When I first started, myself and Dan agreed that we would put ourselves into kind of a program, and we've spoken pretty much every week for the last 2.5 years. So from the off, we looked at kind of the functionality that we already had, and we were working on a program which was the invoice, the first time match rate project for Tarmac. We started at 22%, and through the hard work of the team and the hard work of Dan and the support of his colleagues, we were able to work on configuration. We were able to work on looking at the original implementation and making sure that it was still fit for purpose. And then I remember, banging on Dan's door and saying, look, one of our biggest challenges in Tarmac is GRNing. And we keep saying to our sites, you're not GRNing, you're not GRNing, please can you GRN? But when we actually took a step back and looked at the insights, we were asking our sites to GRN in something like 291 different ways. So, for example, you can have a delivery ticket that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can have a delivery ticket that's, UK_AB, for example. So we started working on how we could standardize that slightly. And I'd say to Dan, I'm sure there's a way we can do this better, and we could do this better. And bless them, came up with a solution for us. And through testing and implementation, I was very pleased to see that when we went live on the project, we jumped from 22% to 77% on our first time match rate. So massive, massive well done to both the team, and obviously a thank you to Dan and the guys over there. We also had statement matching. So we push all of our statements through to statement matching around the reconciliation piece that, as we all know, we have to make sure that our liability is covered and that we're comfortable from a goods receipting or a GRNI point of view. So again, we spent a lot of time working with Dan on how we can lift that out and really make that a tool of benefit to the team, and making sure that they're kind of using it to the best of their advantage all day, every day, so to speak. And again, the other one was around our critical relationships with our suppliers. So our AP mailbox, and I'm sure a lot of your AP teams out there will be the same. We have circa, 500 to 700 emails a day into one mailbox, and a team that were drowning. So we, again, through kind of my tears and stuff to Dan, it's like, there's got to be a better way of me doing this. And he's like, well, actually, we've got a solution here. So we went through a program again around switching on a supplier portal. So it's a self-serve portal to our suppliers. They all get a log on. They can go and see the status of their invoices. They can go and see which invoices we've paid. They can see whether we've not got a copy of the invoice, because some of them still randomly send them through the post, etc. So there's a few there that obviously sometimes invoices just don't get received. So it is that self-service. So what that means is it will take the volume out of that AP function and allow them to get more to the value adds, the statement recs, and the liability stuff that's obviously really critical to the day-to-day mechanisms of P2P. And again, I'm not one to sit still, so I'm always banging on Dan's door about, there's got to be a better way of doing something. And we are currently looking at developments around delivery tickets. We're looking at developments around configuration at our supplier level. So, for example, and I'm sure some of you are aware of this, we have fuel fluctuations that can originally might have been changing every week, but now they're changing every day. So your invoice matching logic becomes a problem. So again, looking at better ways in which we can do things around that. So it is good to see that that's a program and an investment that both Dan and Cogent AP Matching have made, and myself and the team in P2P. So I think that's been really, really critical to the achievements within Tarmac. Okay, next slides, please. Okay, so what's next? Thank you. Okay, so obviously I've just spoke around kind of some of the continuous improvements, but one of the things that we kind of realised was that our platform version that we're on was several versions out of date. So we've just recently done a system upgrade to make sure that we've got all the new and shiny functionality that Dan and the team can offer. Again, like I say, looking at that supplier level config, auto goods receipting, how amazing would it be that a company can take a picture of a delivery ticket and suddenly your delivery ticket, your PO's GRN'd automatically. So again, looking at how we can lift them invoice match rates, and again, getting the team back to some more value-added tasks. So I think that brings me to the end of my presentation and the overview of everything that's been going on at Tarmac. And again, I'd take the opportunity to thank Dan, obviously all of the support that you've given me, but also, you know, the team. We wouldn't be where we are without you guys. So again, thank you all for your efforts. Okay.
Thanks very much, Gemma. It's been fantastic listening to you, your transformation journey that you've been through, and really, really interesting as well to see that fantastic results that you've had there, going from a 22% first-time pass rate to 77 is fantastic, and to see some of those complexities that you were and challenges that you had to get some kind of standardization in there. So now we're going to hear from Daniel Kimpton about how Tarmac were able to achieve some of those results that we've been listening to just now. But thanks very much, Gemma. And if anyone's got any questions, again, I remind you just to put those into the chat function, and we can get to those afterwards. But now, if I can welcome Daniel. Dan.
Lovely, thank you, Ellen. And yeah, no, thank you for that presentation as well, Gemma. That was really good. So I'm just conscious of time, so I'm gonna what I'm planning to do is I wanted to give you sight of the statement matching system. So I'm just going to do a quick intro on kind of who we are and who some of the customers are, and then I'm going to show you the system. I'm going to explain how the proof of concept works, because that's something that we offer to people if anyone's interested. And then we'll finish with 10 minutes left for Q&A. So we've referred to a number of products, you know, during Gemma's presentation, but we actually rebranded at the beginning of this year because we've got three products: invoice matching, statement matching, and duplicate matching. So we kind of rebranded them underneath the AP matching kind of umbrella brand. Invoice matching is for doing invoice automation. So we offer like basically a cloud-based system where we give customers an email address to send their invoices to. We do the data extraction if it's a PDF invoice, and we've also got a global e-invoicing network that we can plug into this as well, that meets a lot of the mandates, well, all of the mandates that are coming in across Europe. And it does line item matching, automates the posting to the ERP system if everything's good. If there's an issue like a missing receipt or a price problem or something needs approval, that gets launched automatically. So accounts payable are really only left with the exceptions that the system can't automate. So that's invoice matching. Statement matching, which is obviously the focus for today, is for doing automated supplier statement reconciliation. And then duplicate matching, which uses the same data set as statement matching, so customers of one can use the other. That gives you configurable duplicate identification reports, and it will basically highlight potential duplicates that hit your ERP system the previous day. So the idea is to be preventative on the duplicates and to clear them down at the earliest opportunity. And it also offers workflow to kind of manage, you know, if you have to go and recover something from a supplier, there's a process that you have to go through to do that. So there's workflow to manage it. If you look at some of the customers, obviously you can't get that many logos on a slide, but we've got lots of them. It's probably about 120 plus now globally. About 60% are in EMEA, about 30% in the US, and then 10% kind of around the rest of the world. So yeah, we've got lots of customers. And if I give you an overview of what statement matching looks like, so this is the kind of dashboard that you land on when you log in. So you can see I've got some key reports on here, like show me all the statements where I've got missing credits. And then if you're in a shared service center, typically the team is split by company code and supplier. So you get like a search page where you can select the statements that you're responsible for as a user. If you hit search, it basically gives you a list of statements to work on. So you can see what the statuses are. You can sort them by, maybe statement date or value, work on the big ones. I'll show you an example where you've got a missing credit, for example. So this is the main screen. So you've got the supplier's statement data on the left, and then you've got your ERP data on the right. So you can see most of the items on the statement do match, but the top line you can see as a credit. So it's a credit note that's on the statement, but not on your ERP system. If you want to, what you would normally do is want to contact the supplier to request the missing credit. So you can email the supplier from statement matching. So you get this little email sort of function that pops up. The email from address is one of your email addresses. So obviously any replies come back to you, and then you can put a subject and message. And you can either send a copy of the full report, which shows what's matched and what's missing, or you can send a copy of the report that just shows what the errors are. So I'll show you what the report looks like. If this was a Tarmac statement, it would have the Tarmac logo up here. And you can see, you know, for the supplier, we're not only requesting that they send the missing credit in. You know, you can see we're please send a copy to this email address, but I also know the status of the documents. So I've got some that are ready to pay, some that are in process. So you can see I've got due dates for payment, and I've also got one that's paid. So you can see a clearing date and the payment reference. So this is fantastic for suppliers because, you know, 80% of your queries typically are, have you got my invoice? When are you going to pay me? So the idea is to proactively reconcile, you know, high volumes of statements through the system because it's automated, and then you just share copies of the reports with the suppliers. Other things that we always kind of promote when we do training is if you put an action on someone, like, you know, I've requested a missing credit from a supplier, you should add notes in the system, because if you add notes in the system, let's say next month you get another statement from the supplier and the credit's still on there, you'll be able to see any notes that you added on the previous months, and it kind of builds up an audit trail. Other examples, this is one where you've got effectively data errors. So you have the documents, but there are some issues on this one. You know, if you look at the first line on the statement, it's an invoice for 105.78, but it's on your system with an extra one, so it's $1,000 higher. But it's posted, i.e. not paid, so we've caught it in time, and you would go and resolve that error on your ERP system. And then moving down, you can see I've got a credit on the second line of the statement, and you've put it on your system as an invoice, which is a really big problem that we've highlighted and that you would want to go and resolve. And then you've got some, you know, ones where the dates are different and so on. So what would happen in practice at Tarmac is they would fix the issue on their ERP system, which in their case is SAP. So they do a reversal, put a new one on for the correct amount, correct the dates and so on. And then every day we get a new file from customers. So we get a daily file from customers, and every time we get a new ERP file, it basically updates all of the statements that are in the system. So if you fix the errors on your ERP, then all of these lines would go green on statement matching. So that's a couple of examples of what it looks like from an accounts payable perspective. And as Gemma discussed, they've also implemented the supplier portal. And again, the idea is 80% of your supplier queries are, have you got my invoice? When are you going to pay me? So why not offer them access to that online and let them go and self-serve? So this is free of charge for suppliers. You basically invite them, and then they're able to view the status of their invoices, and you know, including the due dates for payment. If any of them are paid, there's payment reference. There's a separate section for payments where you can basically click on a payment. It then shows you the invoices that are in there. Optionally, because this is a bit of a debate really, because one of the objectives of the portal is to reduce emails coming in. That's really what you're aiming to do. So a lot of customers have this switched off, but you can enable suppliers to submit messages via the portal, and they get forwarded to the email address that you use for queries. So some people have it on, some people have it off. And then the other thing that you can do, if you can get suppliers to do it, they can actually reconcile their own account, because they're able to log into the portal, upload a statement, and then it gives them the results there and then, which obviously you can see on the accounts payable side as well. I'll show you what it looks like. So when you land on it, this is basically the landing page, and if I'm connected to multiple customers that have the statement matching portal, I can see them all on the same screen. So US demo is my demo system, and then I've got L'Oreal and Hovis on there as well. And then if I go and look at my invoices, it basically gives me a list. So it's a bit of a small screenshot, but you can see a list of invoices. You can see the status over there on the right. You can see the due dates for payment. If any of them are paid, there'll be a payment reference here and a paid date here. And suppliers, if they've got a big invoice that they're looking for, they can enter an invoice number or a payment reference and do a search. They can also export it to Excel, because if I'm on the supplier side, I'm in credit control or AR, they can actually download this page into Excel, and then they can reconcile it against their sales ledger. And then that blue icon with the which is basically a mail to command. So if I was to click that blue icon, I could then submit a message to Tarmac that's related to the document. If you look at the payments, you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 payments here, and then if you click on one of the payment lines, it then displays. In this case, there are 2 invoices that make up that payment. So this is great to make sure that suppliers allocate the payments correctly. To upload a statement is very simple. It's Excel. If the supplier wants to upload it themselves, they have to upload it in Excel. And they have to tell the system which column is the invoice date, the invoice number, the amount, and the currency. They hit start import, and then it will reconcile it immediately. And this is what the results look like. So this is similar to the screen that I showed you in Accounts Payable. There's various problems on this one. It looks like I've sent an invoice to you, but you've put it on as a credit, which is very kind of you. Although obviously I would tell my customer straight away if they'd done that. And then I've got some invoices that are missing, and I've got a currency problem. So the supplier, they might see that those invoices are missing, and we've got a little send invoices function on the portal as well, where they can just send invoices as an attachment, or they can just send them, how they normally do. Reporting, we've got lots of reports. I haven't got time to sort of cover them all today, but we've got things like people might want to work on their statements in a sequence. So you might want to look at all of the statements with missing credits and go and sort those first, or show me all the statements where I've got invoices and credits the wrong way round. So you can work through them in a sequence. And then the report that a lot of people use is the critical supplier report. So you can basically flag suppliers as critical on statement matching. And then as a manager, I want to make sure that at the end of the month, I've received a statement from all my critical suppliers and that the status has been set to complete, meaning a user's finished working on it. So yeah, lots of reports. Like I said, we do offer a proof of concept where you can give us data for up to 10 vendors. So you download the data from your ERP into Excel, provide the statements to us, we'll build the system, we'll set up a training session to basically go through all the different options with you, and then we kind of arrange follow-up calls and basically gives customers all the support that they need to make the POC a success. So this provides good input for your business case. The way the pricing works is commercially it's a 30-day rolling agreement with no minimum term. So you don't have to sign up for 12 or 24 or 36 months. It's just 30-day rolling. There's no implementation fees. And then once we go live, there's basically a fixed monthly subscription, which is based on your annual invoice volumes. And then there's a variable monthly statement charge, which is based on the number of statements that you process and the format. There's a slightly different charge if it's a PDF statement or an Excel. And then optionally, we've got the supplier portal extension as well, which is charged at a percentage of the fixed monthly subscription. But if anyone's interested in pricing as a follow-up, then you can just drop Ellen an email. But otherwise, yeah, in summary, statement matching enables you to proactively reconcile high volumes of statements. That's really the objective. You're only focusing on managing the exceptions, so the kind of system does the heavy lifting and you just do the follow-ups, and then you end up with clean ledgers. You pay more suppliers on time. If you do that, you get better relationships, you get fewer queries, and then you can also clear your aged GRNI as well, which is a big focus for Gemma at Tarmac. and lots of our other customers as well. And then obviously now it's actually part of a, part of a bigger platform. AP matching provides the invoice automation and assurance. So yeah, thank you for listening. I'll hand over to Ellen for Q&A.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Daniel. Thanks, and also to Gemma for going through some of the challenges that you were facing and some of those complexities that you talked about, Gemma, and Dan for some of the ways in which your solution can help overcome them. Yeah, so we've had a few questions in. First one to you, Gemma. How many staff are in the AP team? And do you include your subcontract processes within the P2P team, i.e., does your P2P team support this process?
Yes, so we have a headcount of 31 within the team. That is split across our SOX team, so audit and controls. We have the development and technical team, AP, IP, central purchasing, the expenses management, and then obviously the business partners in there as well. And yes, we manage the subcontracting process to an extent, but again, work very closely with the contracting business as well.
Right, okay. And how did you standardize your receipting process? And also, what values will auto GRN? That's you, Gemma.
Okay, so we looked at the configuration around our date format. So taking that is the biggest cohort that we had, was that a lot of individuals would do 01 for January the 1st, you'd get 1st Jan, you'd get 1st January. So looking at the majority of that, we were able to do a configuration around the date format, and then look at the invoice date and make that kind of data table logic to that approach. And from a auto, just looking at the auto receipt value, I'm not sure I understand that question entirely. So invoice three-way matching logic applies regardless of the value. Obviously, where you've got things like fluctuating rates, etc., we tend to have things around our FI approvals, so utilities, gas, electric, all of that. But generally, we do obviously everything that's a commodity, anything that's a physical goods, regardless of the value, it's an auto match program within there.
Okay, thank you. And I think a related question. Somebody else has said, "Hi, Gemma." So, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Gemma. You mentioned GRN reference standardization. What ERP system does this apply to in your business?
Yeah, so we're currently on SAP.
Okay, all right. And I'm assuming, Dan, from that perspective, I'm assuming I'll ask you, which kind of ERP systems does your solution work with?
Any of them really. We've got lots of SAP and Oracle and D365 and all the usual suspects. Plus, I mean, we've got customers on mainframes and AS400s, all sorts.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Compatible with all of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And Gemma, does the AP function include payment and treasury, or are they a separate team?
So they're a separate team within Tarmac, so they sit in our central functions.
Okay, and is that something which is likely to change, do you think, in the future, or is it the way that the business is set up?
There's no plan to that there is, and they sit under the kind of financial planning team, so there's no plan to pull that into P2P.
Okay, and I think this is probably a related question again. What does the AP team look like within Tarmac? I guess a little bit more about the setup and where they sit within the rest of the finance team.
Yep, so the accounts payable team is a team of 5, and there's a team of 5 invoice processing administrators, then there's 2 seniors, and then the accounts payable lead. So a lot of volume going through a really small team. So obviously looking at where we can improve the processes, where we can improve the automation is really, really integral, so that they're not, heads down in a mailbox all day, every day, and that kind of job dissatisfaction comes in. And that team, the two teams between them have a massive turnaround when it comes to volume. So that's why we continuously try and look at better ways of supporting them.
Yeah, and it's interesting hearing you talk about that you're constantly looking for ways to improve the process and speaking to your teams as well, because as you say, you don't want to be working with a team where just constantly involved in a sort of headache-inducing transactional stuff. You want to sort of do other things as well.
Absolutely, and you know, if when you're looking at a mailbox that's got so much volume in there, you're getting repetitive emails, but there's also a higher risk of obviously external fraud and phishing emails and all of the things that come in there. So, you know, whilst their heads down, it's really important to make sure that they can see the wood through the trees, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then I think one for you, Dan. Is the system compatible with DRC related transactions and subcontract? And in relation to supplier portal, how are the login credentials managed? Is it registration and or password resets? If you could just maybe talk a little bit more about that system, please.
Yeah, sure. So to get suppliers into the portal, Tarmac and any other customer would basically create a list of vendors. So it's like a list of vendors with a vendor number and an email address that you're going to invite. So you basically put that in Excel and then you upload it into statement matching. So I've now got basically a table that says, you know, this supplier and this email address, they are allowed in. So they get an email, they click a link. And then they have to basically put a password in for the first time, which has to be, minimum 8 characters, 1 upper, lower, and special case. And then they're basically in. Once they're in, if they forget their password, there's a forgotten password button that they can press, and it just sends them an email, and then they have to create another password themselves. So there's no overhead on Tarmac to manage the sort of user accounts.
Yes, yeah. So I guess to some extent it's putting that back onto the supplier as well. And I think you and I have talked before about making things easy to use, haven't we? And I think that's you've got that combination of security and also ease of use. So you make sure that your suppliers are actually using the solution as well.
Yeah, and you have to do all of the right things from a security point of view. We have to go through InfoSec with all of our customers. You know, they're all big enterprise customers. You have to be very hot on security. So you have things that annoy people a little bit sometimes, you know, where they get logged out for, you know, when after a period of inactivity. But you have to have that in because you have to be secure.
Yeah, it's finding that balance, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, and to you, Gemma, on GRNs, how did you get the people responsible for doing the GRNs to do them at the right time and in the right way? What kind of change management did you have to go through?
So we look at our business rules are 48 hours within receipt of the physical goods. We started looking at our reporting accuracy. So we have a dashboard that goes out to our business every week that says this is your auto match process. We worked heavily with the procurement team, and again, you know, a massive advocate of the relationship and the importance of the relationship with P2P and procurement is around. We were looking at the way in which individuals were GRNing, so done some average times per site, looking at whether people were GRNing in advance of receiving the goods, because that's also a bad behaviour. But then looking at where there was, you know, spikes maybe a few days after month end and all of that kind of stuff. So really drove the insights around our goods receipting and made sure that every week that it was going out, that we were kind of highlighting, right, these are the top 10 underperforming sites in effect. But what we also done was then use the business partnering team to train out how to GRN effectively and where to look, and making sure that if somebody's unsure about that, how do you GRN? How do I GRN this individual supplier? Or, you know, just making sure that they know what to do and how to physically read an invoice to a delivery ticket. You know, we're still trying to work on the old culture around sites receiving an invoice directly and receipting on the back of an invoice, because that is absolutely against our rules of business. And again, the you know, additional touch points in that process means that, you know, somebody on site's receiving it and then there's a delay by the time it comes to us, and then, you know, we send it out on a web cycle or whatever for a query. it's the impact to the payment terms to the suppliers then, isn't it? So it's more around the education of the importance of P2P and the importance of GRNing, and why, you know, you're going to risk your supplier being put on stop if you're not doing your part of that journey, I guess.
And I suppose it's about that communication piece, isn't it? Making people, or helping people to understand the impacts of how their behaviour affects the rest of the business, I suppose, and in relation to the suppliers, as you were saying as well.
Absolutely, and we try to. So every time somebody gets so we own the SAP roles. So every time we get a request that says somebody's you know, they've got a purchase requisition access, we will then reach out to that region, to that individual as a new person, as a new starter, and give them P2P training. So we're trying to hit it up front and then do more retrospective kind of refresher training throughout the year.
And I guess this question is quite good to follow on from that, is how long was the implementation process of AP matching?
So the AP matching was, there's probably one for Dan actually, because it was already in place before I started.
Yeah, I'm trying to cast my mind back, because it was quite a few years ago.
I mean, I suppose maybe some standard implementation if people are thinking maybe different size companies, or
so in Tarmac's case, obviously they use SAP, and for SAP customers we have like a pre-built report which gets the data from SAP and Process Director. Process Director is the add-on that we implemented for Tarmac to do invoice automation. So we get data from both of those sources. So we provide that as a transport. So there's nothing really to develop on the customer side. They would import that into their development system, give us a sample file, move it to test, do the same, and then get it into production. And then the second, so that's the sort of data extract part. And then customers also automate the pushing of the file to us. So that's a SFTP process. So generally it's someone from the network and security team that has to sort that out. But generally it's about 4 weeks of elapsed time.
Okay.
From start to finish, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And another question for you, I think, Gemma. How many invoices do Tarmac process annually? And do you have the same instance of ERP throughout the business?
Yes, we have the same instance throughout, and we process roughly around 10,000 invoices a week.
Wow.
So quite high volumes.
Yeah. And then I think probably the last question is there anything that you would do differently? I suppose Matt's maybe thinking from when you first started.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was the project was already in flight when I started. I would probably look at taking putting some probably more effort into the AP matching side, and looking at the statement reconciliation processes and making sure that your GRNI is covered, your liability is where it needs to be, because ultimately that's kind of the critical path around, like I say, make sure your liability is correct, but also when you're looking at your prompt payments and all of that, that is the start to everything else as well. So I probably would have turned the focus or had a parallel focus, let's say, at the time.
If only we had a hindsight, hey?
Absolutely.
A crystal ball. But it sounds like you're doing some fantastic things, and you've had some fantastic results. And as we said at the beginning of the conversation, an award-winning team, and that only comes as a result of doing things well. So congratulations on everything that you've done up to now, and no doubt many more fantastic things to come as well. And also thanks, Dan, for joining us today and having and explaining how your solution has helped Tarmac deliver those kind of results as well. And I think just probably to end this, I liked one of the things that you said right at the beginning, Gemma, that you're proud of your team every day. I think that's a fantastic testament to you as a manager, and to how that team works. And of course, we all know if a team works well, it's it's a productive team, and you could get the kind of results that we've been talking about today. So thank you to everybody for joining us for today's webinar. I hope you've all enjoyed it and got some good insights from it as well. We will be sharing the slides and the recording with you afterwards. But for now, thank you very much, and thanks for all of your questions. If you have any more, then do please send them through to me on email, and I will endeavour to get either Dan or Gemma to answer them for you. But for now, thanks very much again to Daniel Kimpton from AP Matching and Gemma Durham from Tarmac. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Have
everyone.
a good day all.
Thanks, Dan.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.